Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business podcast. I am your co-host JP John Paz from the Two Man Power Trip. Of course, joining me is my co-host, the Wizard himself, Mr. Pro Wrestling Financial Genius, Lavi Margolin. Lavi, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. We're hitting the holiday season. Depending on your listening pleasure, we have a very special guest, Ben Simmons of Tygarts Valley Wrestling Federation. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Welcome, Ben.
You hit it on the head, brother. Yeah.
So, Ben, what's going on in your world? Like, I know that you got so much going on, but as far as like the wrestling aspect of things, like, how did you kind of even discover wrestling just to begin with? You know what I mean? Like, how did you kind of even become a fan, get interested? Maybe where you grew up is a big part of it as well.
Oh, sure. I grew up in rural West Virginia, man, right in the Appalachians, and we're very blue collar, very coal mining and wood industry type jobs, and wrestling fits right into that genre, but it encompasses so much now, man. I mean, every race, gender, everything now, man. It's awesome. But growing up here, when I was 12 years old, man, I built a wrestling ring in the front yard.
Nice.
I grew up on basically. I was born in 1975, so 1985. 10 years old, WrestleMania 3, that era. You know what I mean? And then you got the NWA, Dusty Rhodes, the Four Horsemen, those guys. And I remained a fan my whole life, all the way through college. Even I went to WVU, majored in history, and even for my senior thesis, I wrote a popular American culture the past 50 years, and I did professional wrestling. And from there, I went into I started working with at-risk youth. I started working at the Elkins Mountain School, and then the Youth Crisis Shelter, and then I started my own after-school program that I ran for about 10 years. But at the same time, I worked for the Intermountain newspaper, and I got into journalism. And my minor was in English, so I have a pretty good root, of I don't know, English language wordsmith, whatever. But so during that time at the newspaper and journalism, I made a lot of contacts. I met a lot of people because I covered circuit court, I covered county court, I covered all the municipal meetings, county commission meetings, just all sorts of stuff like that, Board of Education. And in a small town, you start to build that foundation, with all those people. And, when you have a good relationship with a lot of people in a small town, it gives that engine a little bit more fire, a little bit more gasoline for that fire, I guess. So basically during that time, I worked my way up, in the newspaper industry to being a sports editor. But along the road, I worked there maybe 17 years, something like that. But along the road, I met Ryan McBride, Keith Crockett. He had Pro Wrestling Mid-Atlantic, and he was doing shows in the Valley up at Tygarts Valley High School. All the way back in, I got pictures from 2010 when Tony Atlas was in town then, So it kind of goes back to then. I was covering the wrestling just as a journalist. And then we'll flash forward all the way up to 2019. I'd already left the newspaper. I own my own business too. I own a comic book store, and we do arcade games, comic books, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, that kind of stuff. So I have a nice little base in the center of town for my business, which I also promote the wrestling through too. And anyway, we fast forward to 2019. I told Keith, I said, I really want to, get into the business. How do we, what do we got to do to get a show going? Because I'd been covering his Pro Wrestling Mid-Atlantic events for a little while. And we kind of sat down, chatted, and he put the things together for Christmas Mania 1. We did it with Jimmy the Boogie Woogie Man Valiant came in, and it really put things over in this town, man. We hadn't had any pro wrestling here, no shows, and probably not in Elkins, but up the the Valley, we had those shows that Tony was, or that Crockett was doing with Pro Wrestling Mid Atlantic, but nothing in Elkins. So, we thought we'll attack Elkins with this, with the Tiger Valley Wrestling Federation, and the first show had like 500 people, but part of that to kind of get it off the ground, there was a young girl with cancer, and her name was Kaylee, and we really wanted to help her too at the same time. That was kind of one of the focal points was to help her. Even that was part of what got this started too. So that was one of the things we wanted to help her. We saw an opportunity with wrestling, and I've kind of let the philanthropic part of it go because I didn't want people to think that I was like, exploiting any kids or anything like that, because that's not, what I mean? We want to help legitimately, people, And the second show we did for one of our own who had a surgery and he needed some, help. So we helped him. And then, so this show, we haven't really geared it towards helping anybody, but when we go forth, we always like to do some type of fundraiser for somebody in the community. So that kind of gets that aspect of it going too, because when you got these nonprofit groups working together, there's that brings a lot of people in too, So anyway, 2019, we got Christmas Mania 1. We got it off the ground. Jimmy the Boogie Woogie Man Valiant came in, 500 people, close to gigantic success. We go forth to March 2020 when we had set up for March into Madness. And 5 days before the event, they shut down the Phil Gaynor Center where we host our events at because of COVID. That was the beginning of COVID-19 for us here in our community. And basically, I lost quite a bit on that show because I had a bunch of money wrapped up, and whatever. But none of my sponsors were, when we rolled around to 2022 and we did Halloween Resurrection, we made right with everybody that we owed and kind of got that going forward. And, Halloween Resurrection, that was our big show back. We had the Barbarian. We had him set for March into Madness that got canceled. So we're like, all right, we already had him. Let's bring him on in for 2022, this resurrection, this kind of rebirth of our organization, So we bring the Barbarian in. That week, like 2 weeks leading up to, I get COVID. I get released by the doctors the day before the show to do anything. So that was pretty tough, putting on the show basically under COVID. I was pretty sick, man. And then flash forward a little bit further up from that show in October of 2022. In December, I had found one of my best friend's dad. He rented one of my apartments and he lived upstairs in my shop. And it took me to quite a dark place, man. And I wasn't feeling real good. And I kind of holed up. I'm bipolar, so I wasn't doing well. And around Mother's Day, or right before that, around April, Crockett calls me back up and says, "Hey, man," he's like, "I know you're going through some stuff." He's like, "I got some stuff lined up to do a show in Mill Creek up the valley." He's like, so let's just put Tiger Valley Wrestling Federation on it. Let's get you back on track. Let's get you out of this dark place that you're in, man. And it did. It really, time was changed. When time changed and spring forward, and started staying light a lot longer. And my depression kicked back out, and like, it really kind of revived me, And we had Lodi come into town, and it was a cool show. It really was. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of new sponsors on board because I didn't have to do so much with it because Keith had already handled most of the heavy lifting. So we flash forward to now, Christmas Mania 2. And it's been a nice little ride. I've contacted all of my major sponsors. They're all in. I took it to the county commission because they have a hotel motel tax fund here where when people come to our community, we promote a lot of tourism here because of our railroad and our basically, our foresty areas, hunting, fishing, camping, that type of skiing. It's ski season right now, guys. So that's huge here. You got Snowshoe and Canaan Valley. So, we're a tourist type place. So, that was kind of the premise was, hey, you guys have this fund that's set up, how about helping us a little bit? And, they're like, yeah, that's a great idea. We'd like to get behind this because I do a program for each show. And inside the program, I sell advertising back to my roots in, the newspaper industry. And that kind of ties it all in a bow, I guess. I'll give it back to you guys now.
Oh yeah, but as far as what you got going on today, I know Lavi has a ton of intricate questions for you about that.
Okay, man, what we got?
I love it, Ben. You almost got ahead of me there, but I love it. Learning all of that. So what's interesting, as we like to look at the whole business from the grassroots through international companies, and what we hear more and more about is like bidding, for WWE even, right? Like their big shows now, they want the city to come to them and say, we'll give you this X amount of dollars. But we often don't see it at the grassroots level outside of, let's say, a county fair hiring pro wrestling like as a sold show or just to be for X amount of given dollars. So like, was it the connections you have to the town where you're like, oh, okay, let me connect the dots here. They have tourism. I know the people through my job. Let me pitch them on this and go through. I think this process, if I remember correctly, I may have read another article about you a few weeks ago, a few months ago. So it's been like a process to get this money.
With this one, it hasn't. I mean, I've always kind of knew the fund was there. I just I have asked, inquired at times. But this was really the first time I could kind of get on the agenda, and I had a pretty good, solid plan going in. But I think that I guess that answers your question.
Yeah. So it's in terms of dollars and cents. It was in the article. I believe events typically cost you $8,000, and you are receiving $5,000 in support from the county for this event.
Yeah. Yes.
So what does that allow you? I know Tony, if I'm reading the advertising correctly, Tony Atlas is coming in for this show. So for an event like this or for future events, does it allow you to take more risks, maybe to bring in one or two more stars that might be unknown to increase the attendance? What can you do now with this $5,000?
Well, really, with that, it just kind of goes in through the budget. It kind of we're going with the next step. We're taking it from a sporadic show here and a sporadic show there to all right. In 2024, we're setting up 4 shows, in stone. So that allows us to book people in advance. That allows us to start developing our storyline. That allows us to get better rates on things like insurance or the Phil Gaynor Center even, so that's one of the things. It's just kind of some seed money. I pay my booker. He books a lot of the talent, and then I have some other expenses in there. I pay the Phil Gaynor Center. I pay the insurance. I pay for the publication that comes out. And some of those type of fees, different things. At the end of the day, really, I don't take home much other than the concessions and whatever merch that I sell. But it's really not so much about profit at this point. It's about following your passion and doing something you love. And we have a very small community here. We got 7,000 people. And when you can bring, if I could get 1,000 people, that's a seventh of the community, man. That's a pretty good number. And with 500, what's that, a 14th? I guess I'm not very mathematical, but that's a good amount of people. It's a lot of kids. We give away a lot of free tickets, and that's one of the things too. Our sponsors see all these with my advertising package, I'll sell a full page ad in my program, but I'll give the merchant, 2 front row seats or something like that, And so, because I want them there, I want them to come and see just how awesome this is, just how much fun this is, and just how excited these people are. And, once you build that foundation, you just continue to layer it and layer it and layer it. And, eventually the plan would be maybe to have one show a month, or to, and not all of them would be here, maybe hit the surrounding counties, Barber County and Tucker County, and, maybe even venture forth into Upshur County, and each of those, it's building that from the ground up. I'm not trying to take over the world. I'm not trying to take over the state. I'm just trying to hang out in my little town and give the people here, something to do, and be able to spotlight the businesses that are here, and so when people come into these shows and they look at the program and they're like, oh yeah, me fiesta. That's let's go have some Mexican tomorrow night. Or hey, next year when I book a vacation at Canaan, we'll go down and hit that restaurant, or we'll visit Counterculture Concepts because that's a really cool comic book store, or they'll maybe they buy a property here. They're looking to buy property and they find House Hunters, which is a really great real estate company here. So it's promoting these businesses within to the people who come here.
Yeah, I love it. As we're talking, coincidentally, today, I'm reminded through Facebook that it's the 28th anniversary of the death of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. So it's great to see that things are alive and well in Appalachia. Um, Sometimes we live in the bubble. Maybe I more than John. John gets out there more, but sometimes like on Twitter, we get so caught up in like who had a 5-star match and what are the message boards saying. Ben, I'm imagining the fans that you're drawing to the show probably don't I'm sure some people are into that, whatever, but I'm sure most of them, they're like, we just want to have a good time. Have we heard of this person on television? It's not like, did Will Ospreay have 7 stars? I don't know if Will Ospreay would
Exactly.
draw 100 more fans for you, right?
Exactly. Look, I can bring in like the Golden Pinky Society, or I can bring in like Crazy Shay and his lunatics from his asylum. And, I work with so many kids in my town through my comic book store and my game, my arcade, that, it's over. They're over. I put them guys over in this town. That way, they're the stars. They're who people come to see. I mean, everybody knows who's on Monday Nitro, or, Monday Night Raw, or who's on AEW, whatever, Myself, I'm more of a fan of the smaller wrestling. I like NWA, and I like Major League Wrestling. I like that type of stuff. I watch it all. Trust me, but it's I even watched War
Now,
Games last night.
Speaking of the NWA, with Billy Corgan, I know that he's making efforts to sort of create a territorial system once again. Might that be something like as things keep building, you would want to inquire about?
Yeah, that would be awesome. I mean, definitely. I mean, I've always been a fan of the Smashing Pumpkins, even, man. Like, I saw them like in '94 at Lollapalooza or something, man. I was like, and then like later on in life, you're like, what? Billy Corgan is pro wrestling? He's into this, And then like, yeah, I mean, I'd always been a fan of the NWA anyway, all the way back to Dusty Rhodes and Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard and all those guys, Kendall Windham, and we could talk wrestling all day.
Sure.
But
Now, off the top of your head, like just thinking about like, people that are open to doing independent appearances and so on, if the funding was there, and hopefully it'll continue and grow even, who do you think would be the biggest draw that you could bring that's off television now? Like a Matt Riddle who's doing appearances now? Is there like a certain dream person that would be available that you'd love to get, let's say if you grow in a year or two?
oh well, on the I guess talent wise of what I can draw right now, I would think somebody like Matt Cardona would be awesome, just because he's so like out there with everything going on in the independent circuit. I really like him. Yeah, Matt Riddle. I love Matt Riddle. He would go over well in this town, just because of our town is a touristy type town. It's a little festive sometimes. So I think I think Matt Riddle would definitely be cool. I like to bring in personally. I mean, I like the legends, man. I mean, they're not going to be here very long, and I'm right now. I'm learning the business. And I I just want to put on these local shows at the Phil Gaynor Center for the next 20 years, whatever, until I die. I'm I'm not going to be in arenas. It's not. I mean, we're like a minor league baseball team. We're here to entertain our people, and if other people like it, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, but we'll do our best just to entertain us, and if everybody else likes what we're doing, then that'd be cool too.
Nice. Let me turn over to John.
Yeah, John.
So what is next for you, immediate future, and then what is next for you, like in the not so distant future, moving ahead?
Well, right now I'm trying to finish everything for this event. I'm putting the itinerary together. We got basically my dad and I are going to go to the airport and pick Tony up on Wednesday the 6th. We're going to bring him back. Holiday Inn's giving me some rooms. I mean, I get the whole community behind us. It's like, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a whole city to raise a wrestling organization, or whole valley, I guess. But, we're going to pick him up, bring him to Holiday Inn, let him get rested up. Thursday morning, we're going to work out at Anytime Fitness. Then we're going to go to Great Harvest and have some lunch. And then we're going to hit the county commission meeting at 1:30, take a couple pictures with those guys. And from there, I was trying to hit the mountain school to take him up there, but I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough time because the local Mexican restaurant, Mi Fiesta, had asked me if I could bring him up. Joe and Karen, the owners, are awesome people. They're good friends. And I'm like, yeah, man, we're there, brother. Always support me. I always support you, So taking him up there, we're going to have some tacos with Tony. And then basically 3:30 to 5:30 is when that's going to happen. And then about 6 o'clock, we'll get back down to my shop at Counterculture Collectibles. And we'll watch some wrestling with Tony, have a little meet and greet there with all my kids. I got about 25, 30 kids that hang out just about every day in my shop, man. So and I know Tony loves to work with kids. I mean, if you watch Legends House, that episode when he was talking to Gary Busey and the hacksaw Jim Duggan kind of interrupted him there. I think Tony will enjoy his trip. I think it'll be like a vacation for him almost, man, to come to our little mountain town. And I mean, I'm going to hustle him around some places, but I think he'll really enjoy it because the kids, they're all pumped to meet him. They never really meet any celebrities here. I don't have the rich kids, man. I got the kids that are, we all have SNAP, man. They all get governmental assistance, man. It's poverty at its finest, brother. We're poor. We're poor, man. And it's there's a lot of drugs here. There's methamphetamine, heroin's on the rise, fentanyl, that kind of stuff. So we got to do as much as we can to keep this community, positive and keep these kids moving in a positive direction. So when we do a little meet and greet with Tony at my shop and watch wrestling, I think it'll be good for not just the kids but for everybody, But then we'll adjourn from there about 8 p.m. I'll take him back to Holiday Inn, let him get rested up. And then Friday, we're going to do, I don't have all the itinerary set together for Friday, but pretty much we'll hit like two of my sponsors, the Be Happy Shop and Allstate Insurance. We'll take pictures there. And then we have a meet and greet at Pizza Hut. The general manager there, I went to kindergarten with, man. I knew him all through middle school, high school, my whole life, and I'm almost 50. So, that's what I'm saying. Like the general manager at Pizza Hut is one of my lifelong best friends. So to get a meet and greet set up there, it's, you got that foot in the door, that connection. And that's having a small town, and that's what it is. Man. It's just having all those connections. And then Pizza Hut is maybe less than a mile from the Phil Gaynor Center. So from 3:30 to 5:30, we'll do the meet and greet there, have some pieces with Tony, and then we'll get to the Phil Gaynor Center about 5:30, something like that, and get ready for the show.
Where can everybody follow you and follow Tigard Valley?
Well, I have all the social media set up. I got, we're on Facebook's kind of the big, the flagship for us because it's what I started when I started this back in 2019. But I recently set up a TikTok for it, which has been kind of fun. I never really got into TikTok until about 2 months ago. The kids at the shop, and my daughter's 16. They're like, "You got to do this. This is a lot of fun." So we're going with TikTok now. I have an X account. I have YouTube. We have a YouTube channel with Tiger Valley Wrestling Federation, and I put a lot of the videos on there. Stuff like that. So, yeah, you can find me on just about any of the social medias.
All right, Ben. Good luck with everything. Good luck with the show. Good luck with the league. Thank you for all the time today. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, I think I just completely just talked the whole time. I'm sorry, guys.
That's the best. I love that. To be honest, that's my favorite. That's my favorite. Yeah.
I'm a chatty Cathy, man. If you meet me like in the street, man, I can't like go to Walmart, man. I go in there, dude. I'm in there for 2 hours, brother, because I know everybody in my community, man, and they all know me. It's a certain charismatic, magnetic personality. I'm not trying to, I'm not bragging or nothing like that. I'm just saying that, I like to treat everybody nice, man, and most of the people here treat me nice.
Thanks, Ben. Talk to you soon.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much, Ben.
Hey, guys, I really appreciate the invite. Thanks so much, guys. I enjoyed it.
Thank
Bye.
you, Ben. All right, Lavi, let's go to the news. What is going on with, of all things, Chinese viewership? What the heck's going on, Lavi?
Yeah, I love it. I have to reset my brain. I'm in the grassroots of West Virginia, which is absolutely fascinating. And then Thursday night, Thanksgiving night, S&P Global gifts us with a wonderful deep dive Kagan report that looked at consumer insights into sports viewership in China. So, percentage of online households in China that view selected television sports. So just to give a little bit of a flavor, basketball 58%, soccer 53%, tennis 28%. You go all the way down, not unexpectedly, tied with baseball and just ahead of American football and hockey, and far almost double ahead of cricket comes pro wrestling. So 7% of online households in China view pro wrestling. Sports that are less widely viewed, such as baseball and pro wrestling, garnered the largest percentage of viewers under the age of 40 at both are 55%, while soccer and tennis had the largest share of viewers 40 and up at 60%. Basketball, combat sports, pro wrestling, and cricket were more evenly distributed across age brackets, with no single age group representing more than 30% of viewers for each sport. So, again, for pro wrestling, 18 to 29 years old was 29%, 30 to 39 years old was 25%, 40 to 49 was 22%, and 50 plus is 25%. Pro wrestling, this is interesting, right? Because this is often said about pro wrestling in the US. Pro wrestling was the only sport with 25% or more of viewing households coming from a home was making 10,000 yuan. Excuse me if I'm mispronouncing that, or less, meaning that whatever the equivalent is, it's an age, it's a bracket that makes less money than others, of course. Total household income by sports viewing households in China. So again, pro wrestling was 26%. Unfortunately for pro wrestling, leading the pack in that way. In terms of middle earnings, 10 to 30,000 yuan, 36%, and 37% earned 30,000 or more. So not to say that everyone in pro wrestling that watches pro wrestling earns less than others, but pro wrestling leads in that way. But then it has distribution in other fields as well. So cricket, even though it's watched by less people, the people that watch it earn more, which makes sense. I think that's cricket is considered sort of a high-end sport. And finally, and probably most informative, percentage of online households in China that view select television sports leagues and tournaments. So, for example, 62% of people in China watch the NBA. Now, you go all the way, not all the way down, but you go into the single digits. WWE is watched by 6% of people. That's actually ahead of things like Major League Soccer, NASCAR. And the Super Bowl is not very popular, just 4%, which is actually kind of amazing when you think about the change from the US. But not to get too far ahead. So WWE, 6%. All Elite Wrestling, 3%. New Japan Pro Wrestling, 2%.
What is going on? Really, really interesting stuff. I'm really into the weeds with some of that stuff. But what about Fight TV? What's going on with them? What is the latest?
Yeah, just a one story, but that's ended, unfortunately, if you're just hearing about this. But they had a Black Friday sale that lasted 2 days, 50% off the annual pass. So if you remember, John, the fight started at a certain price point. I don't have that in front of me. I think $4.99, $5.99, and then it started increasing for people that weren't there early. So you could actually get in, or you could have gotten in now and locked it in for a year at half the price. So, I guess it's sort of gravy of people that hadn't signed up or maybe had canceled their subscription to come back again. It was being promoted, of course, by GCW and shared by others online, but it was just interesting, like, towards the model. I know Black Friday is like an outlier. It's not necessarily a strategy, but it was just interesting to see that drop.
Intriguing with them. What is the latest as far as New Japan Pro Wrestling Battle in the Valley? Looks like they got some big names on this card, some really big names on the card.
Yeah, so Osprey and Okada, um, uh, Eddie Kingston, Zack Sabre Jr. Their women's champion, who's actually gotten a lot of attention
Oh,
as well.
Julia. Yeah.
I think from WWE, right? I'm not sure if that's her first U.S. appearance, or at least high profile one. So that actually seems really intriguing. But all this is to say, like, how are ticket sales going? So WrestleTix had this, I think, on the 25th of November, and it was just 105 tickets up from the previous 7 days. So 1,057 ticket increase, and their capacity is double that. So still a little bit of time, but 7 weeks or whatever, but not really moving so well. And just a note, and I can't really speak on this too much in terms of the executives in Japan, but interesting in terms of course, under the Bushiroad umbrella is Stardom. As of this morning, Mr. Taro Okada is the new president of Bushiroad Fight. I will utilize my many years of experience in Bushiroad to do my best to help Stardom grow even further. We sincerely ask for your continued patronage in the future. So that was interesting to me because, right, the original owner of Stardom seemed to have like his own thing going on that was doing well, and their effect business wise.
Now, as far as the NWA is concerned, very interesting. It just kind of popped up on the CW app, right? I mean, what is that normal? I mean, how come it wasn't promoted at all? And then I saw on social media NWA was kind of like joking around about it. Like, so what's the latest on that? What was the latest on the NWA and the CW?
Yes. So right, there's all this speculation about a deal being lost with the NWA to be on CW network, which I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, but I was pretty dim about, especially with WWE announcing a deal so soon after the news broke of the controversy from the NWA pay-per-view with the Sinister Minister and so on. But there's a lot of excitement because the NWA is now on the app, the CW app. So first of all, one of the things that I wanted to put out there was that WoW has been on the CW app for a number of years. So it's not the first pro wrestling on there. But it's interesting to see both employees and sort of, sites or super fans have been, promoting this like it's very important, like Alliance Dash Wrestling or at the Alliance blog. Okay, all of you who stood by the NWA as they navigate the waters of getting power onto a better platform, pat yourselves on the back. The NWA fam now has an important role. Go watch it. Go download the CW app and watch all 15 episodes. We are the Alliance, and the NWA official Twitter actually replied to that. That would be a nice gesture, but seriously, thank you. This isn't it either. We can't wait to headline 2024 with all of you, more to come. There was articles speculating how will Billy Corgan react to it dropping on the CW without a big announcement, and his reaction publicly was just to say that it's now available on the CW app. Booking the Territory Legacy Cast said, YouTube, your own stuff, do your own advertising. Hope to get some revenue from it if you don't offend the algorithm. CW app, steady income and a partner with nationwide reach promoting your programming. We can explain it to you, but we can't understand it for you. And Joe Galley, who I believe works for the NWA full time now after leaving local television broadcasting a few years ago, I believe. When I used to work in local news not that long ago, the number one thing reporters were told by management was push viewers to the app. Interesting how television viewing habit works in the modern era. So it seems like a lot of preface to like make the CW app story like bigger than it is. Certainly not a bad thing for them, and obviously there was some talk with the CW in some regard, but I think Defenders, you see this more with like Impact or TNA, sort of like trying to take everything and like make it a bigger deal perhaps than it is. But I think it is what it is, basically. Like, how big is it for WoW? Not that big, but nothing wrong with it. But in terms of the Sarasota market, there was a picture shared by the NWA, which looked pretty good. You could see people in some of the riser seats. PW Insider had it as 1,000 plus tickets. The first show didn't get as much attention, so I just wanted to talk about that briefly. Smashing Pumpkins frontman and NWA president Billy Corgan will be in the ring as he brings the stars of the NWA to compete against the best of Fight the World Wrestling. NWA stars Aaron Stevens, Murdoch, Latimer, Camille, Magic Jake, William. They list William Patrick Corgan and Samantha Starr will be there live. And then they were in the Robarts Arena. So collaboration, still a good way, sort of like if you're flying people in, maybe collaborate with another promotion. And hopefully that was successful as well.
What about AEW? What's the latest?
Yes. So the thing that I'm going to focus on tonight, or just briefly mention that's been interesting to me, is just watching the World's End ticket sales, and then Newark's a few days later. World's End, so 6,025 seats were distributed. The current setup is 7,317. So, John, if I remember correctly, I think the Nassau Coliseum was refurbished a bit, and it's not as large as it was, meaning that maybe there's more club seats or corporate seats, things like that. So I don't know if it's like an 18,000 seat building anymore, but still I think a little bit of time to go, 5 weeks as of this recording. 6,000 seats is concerning. I'm really curious to see, like I've mentioned before, like, is MJF going to get a fair amount of Newsday press? Will there be News 12? News 12 Long Island shouldn't be too hard to get, but that sort of local coverage. And then I was curious why they're running a show somewhat the same, somewhat different market. The Prudential Center, which is quite large, they've moved almost 3,000 tickets for the January 3rd show. The setup is about 4,600 tickets, but prior to that, maybe not the last show that they did, but certainly pre-COVID, and then I think the first show or two post-COVID, they were doing, some shows were over 10,000, some were nearly that amount. So it goes to show the difficulty in moving tickets, and also the challenge with having one show after the other, in somewhat of the same market.
Very true. Also, by the way, NASA holds 16,000. So to make it only available for 7,300 and then also only sell 6,000 tickets, not really a good sign as far as AEW and how cold they are right now. You know what I mean? I mean, super cold in your big baby faces market, in their hometown.
Yeah, that's why I'm especially concerned for them. I know that it was down when they ran Flushing, of course, in the tennis stadium, but I would think like a unique show like this, when you imagine, let's say, like Montreal, and you bring in a French Canadian who's local, like you can really pop the attendance. Although, when WWE was struggling with the house shows, even Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn didn't always bring like a big house, even though the Quebecers could do so, right, in the mid 90s. So it's not always guaranteed if you have a local star, but like the champion, this is really his first headline show in his market. That is surprising that they can't move more tickets, but it might be sort of a casual pickup if you get some of that mainstream news and attention. And that week is generally, especially for WWE, the best house show ticket selling week. So maybe some people will get this for presents or something like that. But as it gets closer, it is concerning.
Just really like weird, like just as far as like, oh, how cold they are, you can literally just tell by the ticket sales. You know what I mean? Just like, oh, are they cold? Well, yeah, the ticket sales are terrible right now. So,
No,
I mean,
it's yeah, sorry, John. It's stunning how quickly things have moved along. Because when Jeff Jarrett joined the company, although it's a little while now, like we were talking about that first house show, right, in Ohio, and they moved several thousand tickets, and it was sort of like, what markets can they be in, and like if they keep a tight crew, can they do 3 to 5 thousand tickets at these house shows? And now it's sort of like, can you do 4,000 at a Dynamite? Not in many markets.
it's one of those things where I don't know, how much more ice cold they can get, but it is heading in that direction. But what about some underutilized territories?
Yeah, maybe a little bit thematic tonight. First, talking about West Virginia, but here we're going to swing to Canada. Wrestling, this is from a local article. Wrestling has proven increasingly popular in town since returning in 2022 after a 38-year break. Last year, the crowds in the auditorium at the Innis Falls Royal Canadian Legion Branch 104 shot up as high as 180. This year, the shows are attracting closer to 300 fans, and all of them are bringing wrestling fans from outside the community. I love wrestling when I was growing up. As a kid in Ontario, my grandfather and I used to watch Maple Leaf, said Brent Williams. People are passionate and they're hungry to have an opportunity. At the same time, the fans just love it. So yeah, it's not as simple as sort of like looking at a map and connecting it to like cage match and saying like, where haven't we had shows before? Because I think there's like certain towns that, John, you might see this in New Jersey, right? Like one thing is called one thing and one is called another. So that doesn't mean it's not like underserved if you haven't been in every distinct town. Let's say I know northern New Jersey more. Let's say you run a show in Teaneck, if you're not running a show in Englewood, it doesn't mean that Englewood is like dying for pro wrestling, right? They can just drive the 5 minutes over, whatever it might be.
Right.
But to find like a real area that's genuinely underserved, you could have a lot of excitement there. And I think, like, yes, right, there's a joke in New Jersey that there's this one Legion Hall that everyone like runs, and it even has its like own Twitter fan account because everyone, GCW and everyone else is like there. It just must be a great price, and you get enough fans and whatever, and that's one thing. And that's to sort of take the risks and go exploring, especially if it's in your region of promotion. Places where people are hungry for wrestling, I think you have a good shot at doing well.
What about Tiger Mask? What is going on? I love Tiger Mask. What's going on with him?
Yeah, so the news that's been covered well is Rey Mysterio's cartoon finally coming out, but there's another media property of a masked wrestler that's been undercovered. So, of course, we'll cover it here. Italy is strapping on its boots and entering the squared circle with a live-action film based on Tiger Mask, a 1968-1971 pro wrestling sports manga about the masked wrestler. Tiger Mask has also inspired several anime, a Japanese live-action film, and real-life pro wrestling, assuming the persona of the hero. The Italian live-action Tiger Mask film will be produced by Fabula Pictures of Rome and Brandon Box of Milan, with Kodansha, the publisher of the original Tiger Mask manga, acting as co-producer. The story will be based on the original Tiger Mask manga, with additional international elements added in. The cast, staff, and release date for the film have not yet been revealed.
Wow, super interesting over there. What about GC Dub? Very interesting and eclectic GC Dub.
Yeah, so first, as Brett had been talking about, I think even to us, he was excited about WrestleCade. And based on the picture, GCW seemed to be a big hit at WrestleCade. I think it was a separate ticket that you would buy for entry into the GCW show, and it looks as packed out as it can possibly be. Probably, maybe one of the strongest attendances for GCW over the last 18 months, I would say. Curious to see what that number ultimately is, but looks well above 1,000 people. I'm not sure if the the financials of this, whether WrestleCade buys the show, if it's a sold show to WrestleCade and then they keep everything above it, or something is worked out where GCW runs a show and then just pays a fee and keeps the amount, however that works. But whatever it was, it looks like a big success for them. Interesting is that the migration of talent, if you can put it that way, I guess, of like MLW wrestlers to GCW. I know not all of it is completely unique. Like Fatu has wrestled for GCW for a number of years, but it seems like his dates have been increasing. Hammerstone is still with MLW, sort of in the storyline, the WTF, right, invasion or whatever. It's been reported through the end of December. But now we see Microman, who comes from CMLL. I hope I'm not mixing that up, but
And MLW.
And MLW. Very something going on with MSL and MLW, whatever. But Microman, I think, by himself, and he's always been popular, a well-known international star. So something eclectic to mix it up. And Andrade El Idolo. Hopefully I got the end part right, but I don't know. Like, this may be more of like a rehab project, meaning that Andrade, he had a certain star appeal in WWE, went to AEW, kind of forgotten about, or just didn't get off on the right foot. So curious to see how he does in GCW. Maybe not to make it sound as bleak, but like Drew McIntyre needed, to get some momentum again, and he was doing the Evolve stuff, and then into Impact, and then he came back as like a gigantic star. So curious to see what, and not to say that Andrade had fallen to that level of like 3-man band, but curious to see like if he can sort of regain his passion or momentum, at least in the North American scene, and where that would go.
What's going on with David Marquez?
Yeah, so Marquez continues to sort of be public, but not. He's sort of like, as we talked about last week, it didn't work out with the CW. I was on the 1 yard line, but don't ask me about it. I'm not going to do podcasts about it. But he has like long soliloquies on LinkedIn and Facebook and whatever it is. So I've grabbed something that's really informative. But interestingly, on I think it was Strictly Business with Eric Bischoff. They were talking about that there was even like designs shared between Marquez's company and CW of what it was going to look like, and it was going to be weekly. So when Marquez was on the 1 yard line, it was really on the 1 yard line. So, but here's what he wrote: since the WWE NXT CW announcement was made public, I've seen so many uneducated statements about the CW network itself. Now, over-the-air television isn't as popular as it once was, but soon I predict its popularity will return. Since the mid-90s, wrestling fans have been conditioned to think that a wrestling program can only be successful if it has a licensing deal with cable, and to a degree that's true, but not in all cases. Both WWE and WCW had nationally syndicated series on your local TV stations while still appearing on USA Network or TBS. The reason was because the country wasn't completely wired for cable TV, and to promote upcoming events and characters, the syndicated show helped fill in the gaps. These programs are called barter because the producer trades commercial time with the local stations in return for the weekly time slot. I still do this with my programming. Local stations do not pay for the 52 annual episodes that is on the producer of the series. WOW is in a different situation. They are funded by Viacom and distributed by CBS. Also, local TV are not public access. I've seen this statement a lot from people talking about the network. For educational purposes, here are some facts about broadcast network television. The CW reaches 99% of homes in the US. Lovey said it. I'm going to dispute that. It might be like in a very general sense, but when it's like a digital tier, it's hard to count it, in that same way. And even other numbers that I've seen have it lower, but that's fine. This is more than older networks like ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox. The majority of America has access to these channels free, and if you're a lucky producer, you'll see a healthy licensing fee. The reason most consider CW a lesser channel is because of its marketing and past programs. Also, there are two other national networks: My Network TV, owned by Fox, and Ion. My Network clears much of the country too, but it's being utilized by NBC. They're running archive shows like Law and Order. Ion was once a religious network. Over the years, PACT was owned by NBC. Private firms and now local TV operator Scripps. Also, Ion is the home of WNBA. Much like My Network, Ion is running older episodes of CSI and Blue Bloods, and both My Network and Ion are excellent landing pads for wrestling programming. So a good overall picture, but just want to focus on the latter statement in terms of Ion and My Network. So and I do agree that they would be both great for pro wrestling for getting attention. My Network TV is WOR Channel 9 here in New York, which is a very strong station. But Ion is owned by Scripps, which is being a lot more aggressive in terms of sports programming. I think they have WNBA, and on a regional level, they're picking up some NHL packages and things like that and putting it over the air. So that would be something to watch in terms of potential for pro wrestling programming. And having been PAX, pro wrestling has passed through there for a number of years. I remember ECW briefly aired on the New York PAX station.
What about MLW? How did they do with Fightland?
Yeah, so it depends how you define it, maybe. So MLW tweeted out, "Thank you, Philly, for a capacity crowd last night." But John, as a veteran at the 2300 arena, if you have the photo in front of you from the notes, does that look like capacity to you?
I gotta be honest. When I saw that photo and like the angle of it and zoom like the way it's zoomed in, it's definitely not. Not to say that maybe it was, and that's not a great picture. But to me, when I saw that, that's why I wanted to ask you: was it really sold out? Because that doesn't look
Yeah.
like capacity, or is that just how many tickets they had available, and then they sold out to the number of tickets they had?
Yeah, sort of, in looking at ticket maps, there was plenty of. It looked like from patterns that some seats weren't put on sale. There was still a fair amount of seats. I know that, like, I think post pandemic, there was like one show where like there was just like a tremendous amount of interest, and it was like, fully sold out, super no vacancy or whatever. But here, I think it's more semantics from my understanding of the picture and the seat maps in terms of like taking seats away. I think they might even be doing like a three-quarter setup now where it's not even all the way around. But I think to claim it, and the people that are paying the most attention are people that were there potentially, like, it takes away some of your credibility. So that's something to keep in mind. But I believe PW Insider reported that this was almost the last show at the 2300 arena. I believe due to like a dispute in terms of rent costs. I don't know if it meant that rents were going up and MLW was like, that's too much, or if they were looking for a better rent deal as like a regular user, right? They have, what is it, 4 or 5 shows a year there now. But things were worked out, and they'll be back there the next time as well. We had talked about last time that things were there was a lot of like inquiries related to like contracts and so on. So um, stemming from MLW saying that it's disappointing when wrestlers who sign contracts, want to go somewhere else because it's disruptive to what they're doing. I'm not familiar with Gnarly Garvin, who goes by White Trash Wonderful and Beef on Twitter, but apparently he was a MLW star, and he tweeted out in response to that headline, "I signed a 3-year non-disclosure clause. Basically, I quit MLW because they did not fulfill the dates I was promised per year. I was not released. I asked for my release. Very lucky I got out of that one when I did." And Vita Scott said, I think, I'm not even sure if she worked the show, but maybe there was like something in the contract that was more exclusive or restrictive to what her goals are. Just speculating. She had tweeted, "As a matter of clarification, I will not be appearing with MLW this weekend," in reference to the Fightland show we talked about. "Thanks for the support. I'll see everyone a bunch of other places this month."
And finally, what's going on in TNA? TNA.
Yeah, so just looking at their the Rebirth show, right, January 13th at the Pearl Concert Theater in the Palms. They've moved 504 tickets so far, so 28 tickets since the last update as of November 18th, so it might be a little bit ahead of that. So staying along the same trajectory, maybe instead of 504 tickets, maybe it's 532 or 535. Sorry, joking here, um, but certainly like this is something that talked about a while, but the online enthusiasm and fervor for TNA and even Impact doesn't necessarily seem to match the ticket sales. Of course, people could be excited and all over the world and so on, but you would think like you'd see something related to ticket sales, but not so far.
All right, let's wrap it up. Hit the plugs and finish this bad boy out. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Two Man Power Trip. Check out the website, tmptempire.com. Lavi, what do you got?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter, LaVieMarg, LAVIEMARG. Check out my long form articles, LionCubJobSearch.com, and check out our LinkedIn group, The Business of the Business, Pro Wrestling Industry. And there's been a fair amount of pro wrestling job postings. So, should you aspire to work in this wonderful and wacky industry, definitely check out those postings.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Alavi. Thank you to Ben. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. See you right back here next week for a little business of the business. We'll see you next week, folks.